All right, everyone, this concerning story begs the question, do we really want Silicon Valley's big tech firms to be the gatekeepers of the internet and choose what should and should not be on the internet, what form it should take, and do we think that 99% of all human communications privacy safeguards should fall into the hands of people like Mark Zuckerberg or Jack from Twitter? I say no, mainly because I'm sane, I have common sense, and I realize corporations fundamentally look out for their bottom line. But a lot of people say, oh yeah, that's fine. No, I don't care if Zuckerberg has all my intimate messages. Facebook hackers got a hold of some accounts. And at first Facebook came out and said, well, they didn't gain access to these accounts, we don't think. Then they came out and rephrased that, oh, well, they gained access, but not really, don't worry too much about it. Now we've found out that in at least some of these cases, they gained full access. They managed to harvest, details about the people, but also private messages. Now they're selling them on the internet. Now, this has been confirmed to be real info. And they're thinking that it's a fairly limited number of people, but think about it this way. Facebook didn't even want to talk about this at first. Isn't it concerning? I'm more concerned about Facebook's reaction in the immediate aftermath of this and unwillingness to coordinate and contact the people that were affected. I'm much more worried about that than I am about hackers themselves or something like that, or the release of that information. I'm worried, how many more times is this going to happen before anyone holds Zuckerberg to account? Look, Gab gets completely deplatformed off the whole internet because one psychopath left some messages on Gab indicating a desire to do damage and then immediately did long before anyone could have possibly physically responded. They're held accountable for one individual on their site. Facebook is not held accountable for the actions of Facebook's founder and CEO, Facebook's board, their cybersecurity that they employ, what people do on the site. Remember that time that they live streamed murder a few times? Or that time that those hooligans were live streaming the torture of that kid with mental deficiency? Remember that? Facebook was never held accountable for this. No one ever said, well, we should deplatform this. This site is enabling hate. Well, of course they do. Meanwhile, Twitter, not to be outdone, Twitter is currently banning people's individual tweets if they contain political satire in the lead up to the midterms. You know, the old joke of, oh, Democrats vote on the 7th or Republicans vote on the 7th. If you post that, it'll actually get knocked off and potentially get your account suspended. It's like, yeah, I'm sure very, very large numbers of people actually believe this. Nobody fact check. Look, if someone's too dumb to fact check something like that, they shouldn't be voting. That's my opinion. Let them be misled and not go vote. Republican, Democrat, Independent, I don't care. They're a moron. They shouldn't have the right to vote. The founders would have considered them too deficient to cast a ballot. You know that that's true. Meanwhile, I think Zuckerberg's too deficient to run Facebook. I think he should be kicked out of his own company by his board. Unfortunately, of course, that can't happen because he managed to structure things just right. By the way, that same user data that got sold by some hackers, for potentially malevolent purposes, isn't this the same as Facebook selling that same fucking data in the first place to like Chinese companies and shit? Like Zuckerberg's not already doing, everyone's up in arms. Oh my god, hackers got a hold of the information. The hackers are probably less likely to be malevolent and misuse it than Zuckerberg is. They're probably less likely to fuck around with it than Facebook. The same would be true with Twitter. It's like, oh yeah, someone's Twitter DMs get leaked. Okay, they're probably being misused less than if Twitter decides to bundle a bunch of DMs and sell it to some advertising firm. That's basically what these things amount to anyway. Everything that you post on Facebook or have in the last decade has already been harvested. It's already been bundled. In some cases, I guarantee you it's not actually stripped of personally identifiable information. Look, if you know the city the person's from, their town and general region, you know their interests, you know their age, you know their race, you know their gender, you know their religious affiliation, you know literally everything about them other than their name. Would it take a genius, or would it just take a halfway decent AI program and cross-checking it to some database anyway? Would it take a fucking genius to figure out who these people in many cases are? I don't think so. I think you'd find that a lot of that's technically personally identifiable anyway, and then Zuckerberg's selling it to China. China with all of its computing power and not being bound by US privacy laws. Wonderful! And then we've got like Google developing like a search engine for China that contains personally identifiable info anyway. It's crazy that Silicon Valley is being allowed to get away with this. Meanwhile, people are acting like the big problem is Gab. The big problem is that Gab allowed somebody to post like edgy messages. because they should have known better because this caused violence. No, you know what? It probably staved off their violence. If Gab didn't exist and they get kicked off Twitter, they get kicked off YouTube and everything, they'll just go ballistic right away. They won't even wait. Unfortunately, what you've done is convince a lot of libertarians and classical liberals and maybe left-leaning individuals that Gab is a Nazi site, so they're not joining up. Which means that in some cases you do have these echo chambers on an alt-tech site. Not just on Gab, Minds to a lesser extent sometimes. Not really BitChute. BitChute's more strictly libertarian and technocratic, actually. It's actually a left-leaning site almost on the ground. It just happens to be people like me that are technically left-leaning in some ways who don't want to censor everybody. Who don't want to punch the Nazi or censor the MAGA hat wearer and shit like that. All this stupid shit that's dreamed up by the far left today. All the dumbass shit that gets exported to Silicon Valley. Just like the Wall Street Journal haranguing about super chats in order to get the kill stream knocked offline. And it's like, it was funny. In the wake of Gab being deplatformed, all of these crazy people, all of these morons who don't realize that they're the real jackboot wearers are like, ha ha ha, Gab is gone. There's one person that's like, they said, my Gab account, they're like, oh, you mean you had a Gab account? Ha ha ha. Gab's back, they got a new domain registrar. They're just importing everything and getting ready for this weekend to set right up. Yep, they'll be up within probably the next 24, 48 hours, right before the midterms. It's going to be really funny now, isn't it? I've even thought about streaming political commentary on there, bypassing Silicon Valley entirely. Yeah, I kind of would. Gab has to find fucking companies that aren't even in the United States in order to protect itself. It's the most surreal thing. Never would have guessed 5-6 years ago that would have happened. Back when Silicon Valley pretended to care about privacy and free speech. Meanwhile, Facebook sells your data and then worries about some hackers while not telling you that it was hacked in the first place. Do any of these users know that their data was compromised? No. Facebook's not going to tell them. Remember when Facebook switched to sending most of its updates to an internal Facebook-based email that nobody ever uses? Yeah, so if Facebook does tell you you've been compromised, you probably don't even know anyway. Yeah, maybe someone can confirm. Yeah, Zuckerberg, he's a really trustworthy person. I want to give him more personal info. You know what I've done with Facebook? I don't do anything there. On Facebook, the only reason I still have an account on Facebook as a site is to maintain my official page for my brand. And that page is basically links to other pages like mine, BitChute, and so forth. Fuck Facebook. It's not even fun anymore. That's about all. Peace out.